Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Sound Archives. I am the host of this channel. My name is Christian Maiorino, and I thank you for coming on here today. So today's video will be the second part in a multi-part series where I'm comparing the works of Ozzy Osbourne versus Ronnie James Dio. So I'm actually recording this video now, right after recording the first part in this series. So a week ago, I recorded the what would be the first part, but then there were some technical difficulties in that first video there, so I decided I really couldn't um, use that as I had originally wanted to post up here on YouTube. So I decided this week, you know what, I'm just going to record the first video again and might as well record the second one out of the way. But anyway, regardless there. So, in the previous video, I compared, in this Versus series, I compared Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, Rainbow Rising, and Long Live Rock and Roll, which were the albums that Ronnie James Dio sang on, versus the albums that Ozzy was singing on at that point, which was still the original Black Sabbath, so that in the same period was Sabotage, Technical Ecstasy, and Never Say Die. So, if you haven't seen that video, please go back and watch that one. So this second part right here is going to get into the next albums and each respective singer's discography, if you will. And it was really kind of these albums that kind of inspired me to do this Ozzy versus Dio thing to begin with. I think it was probably more of a Sabbath versus Ozzy thing at this point, but obviously Dio coming in to replace him as the singer kind of created that rivalry there. So, without any further ado, I'm going to get into the albums here. So, we know, the last tour with Black Sabbath with Ozzy, they went in to record another album, and it really wasn't working out this time. They already had problems for the couple albums previous to that, but things really weren't working out at this time. So of course, Ronnie James Dio, who is the lead singer in Rainbow, he leaves Rainbow at this time period. So 1978, 79, going into 1980. And by chance, Sharon Arden, who is the daughter of Don Arden, Black Sabbath's manager, supposedly introduces Ronnie to Tony Iommi. Of course, Sharon would go on to manage Ozzy and eventually marry him. Um, so it's kind of interesting there that she was also, or supposedly the catalyst there for introducing Ronnie to Tony Iommi. But they strike up a friendship and they start writing songs together, which would eventually lead to this album right here, Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell. Um, the songwriting partnership right here with Tony and Ronnie was just magic. Ronnie coming in on Black Sabbath here really revitalized the band and kind of took them in a different direction. So during the writing of this album, Geezer had actually left Sabbath for a while. Um, Not really leaving permanently. He apparently had some personal issues or something, but he did come back to record the record, so he does play on the album. Bill Ward, of course, the illustration of the band there on the back of the record. He's still on drums. But man, what a fantastic album! Even the album cover here is kind of neat. I like it, the Smoking Angels. Um, but right away you got Neon Nights opening the album. Killer. I'm sorry, not Neon. Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting confused here because they list the tracks differently than they actually play it on the album. But yes, Neon Nights does open the album. Killer opening. Then, of course, after that, you get the next track on the album, Children of the Sea, which is supposedly the first song that Ronnie and Tony Iommi wrote for this album. Song that kind of starts off soft and then just gets that killer riff going right there. Lady Evil, another great rockin' song right there. I love Tony's guitar work on that one. Pretty much all the whole record. Of course, you get the title track, the song Heaven and Hell, one of the all-time classic Black Sabbath songs. Of course, another one that would be regularly part of Dio's live set, and one that they will always extend out to be like 12 minutes long or whatever. And they add, the live version, they add the little part in the middle, and the red light coming up on Dio's face, which is pretty cool. Which they obviously don't play it like that on this studio version, but regardless, another great song. And then, of course, going to the next side of the album, you get Wishing Well, which is just another one of those, similar to Thrill of It All, I think, where it's just one of those like happy and heavy Black Sabbath songs. I love it. I get chills when I hear that one. Of course, you get Die Young, another epic song right there. Walk Away, which is a still pretty good song. And then closing out the album, you get Lonely Is the Word, which is, I love that. My favorite Tony Iommi guitar solo has to be the one going at the end of Lonely Is the Word. I just love it. This album, top to bottom, fucking heavy, classic. I really love Tony's guitar playing on this album. Just the fills he does and everything between every song. I think Dio coming in, of course. Geezer Butler, previous to this, had been writing the majority of the lyrics for Black Sabbath. But of course, Dio, with his experience coming in from Rainbow, he kind of takes over that role here. And of course, very different singing style than Ozzy. So bringing him in here, you get a different sounding album. Of course, it doesn't. Tony's playing is still there, but this album doesn't. You can't put this up against, say, Paranoid or Master of Reality or Volume 4, which I put as my background display here today, and say that, they sound the same. But anyway, this album, commercially, they did very well. They had a very successful tour, co-headlining with Blue Oyster Cult when they did this. But overall, fantastic album. So at the same time, when they were working on that, of course, Ozzy Osbourne, he was, of course, starting to be managed by Sharon Arden, who eventually they would develop not just a professional relationship, but I guess a physical one as well, which, eventually they got married, and she became the famous now Sharon Osbourne. So they were putting together a band with Ozzy. So, of course, they got Randy Rhoads on guitar, Bob Daisley on bass, and Lee Kerslake on drums. Initially, the band was going to be called what they named the album, Blizzard of Oz, but then the album just came out as with Ozzy's name and the album title, Blizzard of Oz. But the songwriting combination there produced another phenomenal album right here. Of course, you got the opening track, I Don't Know, Crazy Train, which the song still gets played all the time on the radio now, but another classic right there. Probably a song, honestly, I don't think I ever need to listen to again. Not because I don't like the song, but it's played out. So I'm okay. I like the song, but I'm okay if we don't ever have to listen to it again. And then you get the third track, Goodbye to Romance, which is a ballad on this album. I'm more, being a fan of just, the heavy metal and the more rock and stuff. Most times I'm not a fan of the ballad songs that a lot of these bands do. But sometimes I like them. Not a bad song. Sometimes these softer songs maybe kind of balance out the more heavy ones on the album. But anyway, you get this acoustic instrumental track called D, which is just Randy Rhoads, which I actually like a lot. I attempted to learn that song one time on guitar, and I was probably like 80% there at one point, but I haven't tried playing that in years. But another nice song. Then you get the Suicide Solution, which, according to Ozzy, that song was written about, of course, the lead singer from AC/DC who died from alcohol poisoning about the same time this album was being written. Now, of course, he asked Bob Daisley, who was writing most of the lyrics on these albums. He said the song was about Ozzy himself. So, regardless of who the song is about, another killer classic song right there. Of course, that one would cause some controversy. Ozzy would get sued over that because there was a young teenager who supposedly took his own life from listening to this song, and some of the vocal effects on there, it's supposedly Ozzy saying "get the gun and shoot" or whatever. But Ozzy says, and he said in an interview, like, I never said "get the fucking gun." But regardless, classic song. Then you get Mr. Crowley. You get that iconic keyboard intro there, that kind of creepy thing going on there. And then he just goes into the song, Ozzy singing Mr. Crowley. And then, of course, just getting really heavy there. Love Randy's guitar work on that one. Just so the soloing and the little fills here and there, which he was always really good at this. Not just his regular soloing, but just, in between, just the little fills that he did. Not on this album. Of course, the next one. It's just amazing. Next track, No Bone Movies. I'm not a big fan of this song. Never understood what a bone movie was. It sounds like it should be, I guess, a porno movie or something, but I don't know. To me, it just sounds kind of stupid. I've never heard anyone use the term bone movie. Easily the worst track on the album. Easily. Just never understood that. Revelation, Mother Earth. Fucking epic track right there. Love that song. And Steal Away the Night, which is an okay song. Closing out the album. All in all, of course, you get the back cover there. I got the CD. You get the cover or picture of the band there on stage. I mean, all in all, so this came out in 1980 in the UK and then was released early 1981 in the US. Of course, Heaven and Hell came out a few months earlier than that. Again, another freaking classic album right here. There is one track that was not on the album, but it was a B-side to, I believe, the single for Crazy Train called You Looking at Me, Looking at You, which I think is better than a couple of the tracks on this album, or that made it up on the album itself. I think if you had taken No Bone, if I was producing this album, I would have probably told them not to include No Bone Movies and put that song on there instead. But, hey, we got what we got. But again, there's just so many classics on here. Of course, the iconic Randy Rhoads coming in, who, tragically wouldn't stay with Ozzy long. Of course, he lost his life, the album after this. So anyway, now to compare the two albums here. So, Blizzard of Oz or Heaven and Hell, which is the better of the two? I guess everyone's going to have their opinions on here. My opinion, though, is I prefer Heaven and Hell over, excuse me, over Blizzard of Oz. But only slightly. And I think the main reason there is Blizzard of Oz, I feel, is kind of, it's still a great album, but I feel like it's a little bit played out. Especially with Crazy Train. I mean, we've all heard these songs a billion times. So, I guess you could say it's a little bit played out. Not as much as Heaven and Hell is. But, again, on this one, I think Dio, he's really shining through on this one. I consider this to be the best album that Dio probably sings on of anything that he did. And just his lyrics and everything. Not to say that this one isn't bad. I mean, they're both, it's, I guess it's like picking your favorite children or your favorite pet. I don't know. Again, two iconic albums, two classic albums, but for me, I think Heaven and Hell is the slightly better of the two. So, of course, going on after those two albums, so we go to Black Sabbath. On the Heaven and Hell tour, Bill Ward, I guess, wasn't feeling it anymore. He decided to leave Black Sabbath, and in the middle of that tour, they brought in Vinny Appice on drums. Another great drummer. His style, maybe a little bit different than Bill, but he came in, filled in for the rest of that tour. And of course, he stayed on for the next studio album Black Sabbath did, which I don't have a physical copy here, but that would be The Mob Rules. I'll pull it up on my phone right here. And You can see that there. Maybe not too well, but cool album cover right here with these kind of hooded figures, and looks like there's blood written on the wall in the background. But again, just looking at that album cover, it kind of evokes really what this album is. They really another heavy metal classic right here. You open up with "Turn Up the Night," which is fast paced opener, great song. And then you got the little more mid paced "Voodoo," which is I just love the riff in that one. Another great song. "Sign of the Southern Cross," fucking epic song. That one, it starts off soft in the beginning and with the music and with Dio's vocals, and then it just hits you right away. Just slow, heavy, doomy. I just love the lyric in there. "Gather all around the young ones; they will make us strong." Dio just really, his, not just his singing, but his, as a lyricist as well, just wrote some iconic, great lyrics. Next track on the album, E5150, which is just kind of like an instrumental interlude. This kind of creepy thing, and then of course that brings you into the Mob Rules, just another fast-paced song right there. Sabbath did, they on this one they're doing some fast-paced ones like they kind of did on Heaven and Hell, like Neon Nights and Die Young, which they didn't do too many faster-paced songs in the Ozzy era. Everything was kind of slow and doomy, but they also did slow and doomy ones on here, like like I was saying, "Sign of the Southern Cross." Then you get "Country Girl," another catchy song right there. "Slipping Away," which is it's a decent song. I think my favorite part in that track in that song is just when you kind of get to like the solos in the middle. There's kind of like drum breaks going on right there. Geezer kind of does like a little solo in there, which I love. Of course, Tony playing his solo, so I like that part kind of in the middle there, where each of the players, it's not just the guitar player, it's each of the musicians in the band is really kind of showing off their ability. "Falling Off the Edge of the World," man, another fucking killer song right there. Another one that starts off kind of slow and then just hits you in the face right away. I've seen some Faces of Doom, and I'm only a man. Another great one. And of course, closing out the album, you have the track "Over and Over," which is it's an alright song. It might be, I think, maybe the weakest song on the album, but still, not a bad song. Overall, Mob Rules. Sabbath is still on a winning streak right here. Still did another great album. But of course, that wouldn't continue on with Dio for too long. Of course, he would leave Sabbath after that album and start his own, solo career, his own Dio band. But anyway, kind of circling back now to Ozzy. Of course, at the same time, also 1981, when Sabbath put out the Mob Rules, Ozzy did his next solo album, which is, of course, this masterpiece right here, "Diary of a Madman." And of course, you have Ozzy on the front there looking like a madman. Of course, you got the back cover here. Of course, you got the inverted cross. Ozzy looks kind of normal here. He's still wearing those kind of fringe outfits, which kind of wore throughout the 70s with Sabbath. And at least in the beginning part of his solo career, he was wearing those kind of outfits on the stage. But here, another fucking classic album right here. Of course, you still have Randy Rhoads. It's still the same lineup as the previous album. But on this one, even though Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake are credited as songwriters and played on it, they played on the album, credited as songwriters. They weren't credited as playing on the album. There was Rudy Sarzo was credited as playing bass, and I believe Tommy Aldrich was credited as playing drums on this one. Of course, that would lead to a lot of bad blood between those two musicians, and the Osbourne camp for many years At one point, they re-released this one and Blizzard with their bass and drum tracks removed, with different people playing on it in the 2000s, and of course that led to legal actions. And eventually they did away with those and brought the original ones on. I guess it was kind of Sharon Osbourne was supposedly the one kind of behind that whole debacle. But anyway, going back to 1981 here, Diary of a Madman, you get the opening fast-paced rocker right there, Over the Mountain, fucking killer song. Then you get the next track, Flying High Again, which is another one that gets played on the radio a lot. I love the lyrics, swallowing the colors of the sound I hear. Obviously, Ozzy wasn't really even in his solo career, really wasn't the main lyricist. I think that credit for that would go to Bob Daisley, who wrote some great songs here. Next track, You Can't Kill Rock and Roll. No, Ozzy, you cannot kill rock and roll. Another fucking classic song. Rock and roll is my religion and my law. Great words to live by. Then you get Believer, which kind of has a slow plodding bass, and then the guitar kind of slowly creeps in. Little Dolls, you get that little drum break at the beginning. Another good song. Tonight. Tonight, it's a kind of ballad song. I guess you consider more of like a power ballad. I like it. The last couple tracks on the album, though, are freaking epic. SATO, love that song. And then, of course, you get the title track itself. I mean, Diary of a Madman. I don't know. I love Randy's playing on that. Just going back to the acoustic opening and then going to the heavy part. And, enemies fill up the pages, are they me? I mean, every, top of the lyrics, everything is just top notch. A freaking amazing album. I actually think this is, I like this one better than Blizzard of Oz. I think it's a step up. Blizzard of Oz is probably the more popular of the two for sure, but this one, still a classic. So I guess what I'm going to do at this time is compare this album now up against the Mob Rules by Black Sabbath, and I think in this round I'm going to give it to this album right here, Diary of a Madman. This one I like it slightly better than the Mob Rules. Not that album's terrible. They're both freaking great. But this one right here is just slightly better, I think. I love top to bottom Randy's playing on it. Just everything, the lyrics. Ozzy really hit it out of the park here on this one. So, of course, we all know what happened with Randy Rhoads while they're touring for this album. The story is they were... I guess on a private jet, just flying around for, just flying around for fun. I'm going to take a little sip of water right here. I'm coughing a little bit. But we know what happened there. There was an accident with the plane, and sadly, Randy Rhoads was killed in that accident, which is probably one of the greatest losses in the whole music world, especially the hard rock, heavy metal scene. Losing Randy Rhoads as a guitar player. We could only imagine and think what he would have done with his career. He's considered by so many, his guitar playing is just really kind of influencing just so many players. Now, would he have stuck around with Ozzy after this album, after this tour? Well, that's debatable. There were stories that he was dissatisfied playing with Ozzy. He kind of... There's rumors there that just like, Daisley and Kirsik, he kind of felt like he was, second rate to Ozzy, the man himself. But, of course, he stuck with it. It was a good opportunity for him. Maybe he would have done one more album with Ozzy, and if he had, I'm sure it would have been fantastic, but sadly that was not to be. Um, but honestly, I think at most we probably would have gotten one more album with Ozzy if he didn't tragically get killed in that accident. But that's what we would have had at most, I think. But I'm sure he would have gone on to do other great things in his career. So, but anyway, kind of going back to these albums that I was reviewing here today. Of course, Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, the Dio era Sabbath, and the first two Ozzy Osbourne solo albums. They're all, I mean, four just killer albums. You know, iconic to the whole. They're all just heavy metal staples, icon, whatever whatever we want to say here. So many people out there love these albums, just like myself. I think the timing really worked out. Couldn't have worked out better here. Of course, even as iconic as the Black Sabbath, the original Black Sabbath was with Ozzy, the last couple of albums there, they were getting tired and they weren't, as I said in the last video, they just weren't up to the same par as those earlier albums. And of course, Dio, we already knew with Rainbow, was a great talent. So, the metal gods and the planets were really just aligned, I think, that day. Just the way the timing worked out with Ozzy leaving, getting fired from Black Sabbath for, not being reliable, and then Dio coming in as singer, and of course Ozzy putting together his band. I think this is, I can't think of a more better example of addition by subtraction. So even though you get the iconic lead singer being kicked out of the band, you bring a new singer in who's different but still really great singer, and you produce really great music. And of course, Ozzy putting together a great band and doing good music there. Honestly, it was probably the best thing Sabbath did was fire Ozzy, because if they hadn't done that, if he stuck around to do another album with Sabbath, I mean, it probably wouldn't have been that good. Probably been worse than than Technical Ecstasy or Never Say Die. If Dio had stuck around with Rainbow a little bit longer, I think they could have had another great album. But Ozzy and Sabbath, no, I don't think that would have happened. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. If you have your comments on which albums you like better or which ones you think are better, please put them below. Give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. The next part of this will be focusing on of course, the Dio band albums and the remaining, probably throughout I'm going to try to do the rest of the 1980s there. So the Dio band albums from the 80s, and then the other, up against the other Ozzy solo albums from the 1980s. That'll be the next video in the series. So hope to see you next week. And again, glad you tuned in to the Sound Archives, and we'll see you next time.